Hello and welcome back to our Down and Dirty mini movies. This is another video. This is number 6 in our short film help series, bringing you some different techniques and features of the Topcon products. I had a special request to cover some traversing and traverse adjustments, and the nice thing about that is you can do that all in Magnet Field itself. Now, this is not to replace true training lessons that we have on the e-learning website through our professional service group. You want to navigate there for those, and then also visit our My Topcon Now app for a lot of resources. Now, before we get started in Magnet Field, when we're beginning, two important points. Number one, define your measurements as you measure them, so it's recorded in the raw data as either a side shot or traverse. So basically when we run a traverse adjustment, it's going to pull that raw data information and notice that it is a traverse shot and knows how to manage that data. The second point is, in old school, when we traversed around a piece of property, maybe we began with point number 1, and then when we close back on point number 1, our last point number we use, whatever that is, could be point number 30. We'd store it as point number 30. Then when we ran our adjustment, we would begin on point number 1 and close on point number 30. And we can still do that, but Magnet Field makes it real easy to go ahead and shoot that last point, measure the last point, closing in on point number 1, and record it as point number 1, storing it as a checkpoint. And that will basically make things a lot easier as we adjust the data itself. And that's how we're going to do it in this particular example. So I have a brand new job created. It's job number 6, since that's the file, movie file that we're actually doing. Just decided to do that. Brand new job, no points in it whatsoever, starting from scratch. And we're going to be doing a 10-acre boundary. We're going to be traversing around 4 points, and then off of point number 3 we'll take a couple side shots and then show you how to continue and pick up the traverse and continue on. So as we get started here, I don't have any points in here, so instead of just creating a point under edit points, I'm just going to jump right into setup and create a point on the fly, point number 1, as we set up our backside. So I'm occupying point number 1. I'm just going to back sight, point the gun toward north, and just leave that at 0 at this time. Now it's going to give me an error message here saying that point number is not found. That's fine. We'll just jump right in and create point number 1 to occupy. And why don't we go ahead and just create some lines as we go along. So I'm going to define this as a boundary with a string of 1. And we'll give it our default 5,000, 5,100 coordinate values to begin. And I'll hit OK. So occupied 1, backsighting north. Let's click next. And I don't have anything to measure to, so I will uncheck the measure distance and let's click set. Now I'm manually going to have to type in 0 to set the backside. So we have our instrument set up. Let's go to Survey and Topo. Now I'm in the map view and I will go ahead and leave that there. I could change that back to the normal screen, but I think we have better visualization here for you to see what's going on if I leave that in the map screen. Now, one thing about the map screen, if you do want to change the point number, which I want to do, keep them sequential to point number 2, I have to hit that folder, and then I'll also give it my boundary code and my string to draw my line. Now this is the most important part, is we're traversing. Notice here that it says right at the top, side shot direct. Well, let's hit our mighty magnet button, go down to measure, and change this to traverse. Okay, so we want to traverse. So I will, normally you would occupy the gun, turn the angle, and I'm going to manually have to do that. And again, we're going to do 10 acres, so it's roughly 660 feet square. And it asked if I want to move the instrument at this time. So the nice thing about traversing, not only is it recording that you're traversing in the raw data, but it will move you up to the point number 2, point number 1, automatically fill in that information for you. So I'm occupying 2, backsighting 1, go to the next screen. I have to manually set my circles to 0. So I've set my backsight, and I'm going to turn 270 degrees and go over here another 660 feet. So my code is still where I want it to be. We'll turn our 270 degrees and measure that. Do you want to move the instrument now? Yes, I do. So I'm occupying 3, backsighting 2. We can go to the map view and take a quick look at this. Occupying 3, backsighting 2. And this is being colored in because this is an area feature. Okay, and we've created lines and strings. So I'm going to bear with me as I manually set my 0 of my gun. Now I'm ready to traverse to point number 4 down here. So I'll measure this. I'm going to turn 270 degrees. Now it asked if I want to move the instrument. I went ahead and measured the traverse shot first, and normally as a survey you do that before your tripod settles and so forth. But this particular point I do have a couple of side shots, and I'm going to pick them up now before I traverse. So I'm going to say no. So even though this icon's here, don't really worry about that. I'm still occupying 3, backsighting 2. I'm going to jump up to here, set this to side shot mode, and I'm going to measure a couple side shots where I'm going to turn 90 degrees, maybe measure something over there 25 feet. And notice I made a mistake here. The mistake I made was not changing the dang code from boundary. And that may be a good reason to have your prompts turned on. Okay? Let me fix that and I'll come right back. So what I did, I just jumped out for a second there, down and dirty video, like I say, and edited that point and changed it to a ground shot. So that was a side shot over there for that point. Now let's measure another point right over here. I'm going to turn 180 degrees. We'll go 25 feet again. And then I stored another side shot. Okay. So now let's go back to the Mighty Magnet, come down to measure, change this to traverse. It automatically kind of remembers the whole sequence and says, do I want to move the instrument now at this time? So I'm going to say yes. So it puts me on 4, backsighting 3. Okay, so I'm going to read my backsight, 0 set the gun, and now I'm ready to traverse to our closing point. Now in the old ways, as I mentioned earlier, we would just record the point as number 7, and then in the traverse adjustment we would begin on 1, close on 7, and force those 2 points together. The nice thing about Magnet Field is we can store this point as point number 1 as a checkpoint, and it makes our life a lot easier when we run the traverse adjustment. So I'm going to come down to this folder. I'm going to change our next point number to point number 1. I'm going to leave this as ground shot, and I'll show you something about that here in just a second. So occupying 4, backsighting 3. My next point's going to be traversing back to point number 1. So I'm going to measure the 270. I tell you what, let's introduce a little bit of error into this so we will have a misclosure. And let's traverse back instead of 660. Let's go 659, 91. Now, it gives me a warning message with point number 1 saying that I basically can't do this. This will create a circular dependency in the job. Ooh, I'm scared. No big deal. Just click close. Now, here we have a point check list, and one thing I like to look at when I first see this is the fact I can see how much I'm missing right here without running any adjustments. I know that I've got an error about 600ths in the northing, about 900ths in the easting, and so forth. Which, number one, alleviates a lot of pain and worry that I didn't really blow something really bad. Then over here, we have an option to, since point number 1 exists, to rename it to point number 7, or store this as a checkpoint. And this is what I really want to do. I want to store this as a checkpoint. That way I do not have 2 points basically on top of each other, and that again will help me when I run the adjustment, and we'll show you that here in just a second. So store this as a checkpoint, click OK, and then I did not change the description, so it notices that I'm trying to store this as a checkpoint. I'm just going to use the old description. That's what I want, and we'll hit OK. And basically, since I did shoot that as a traverse point, it's asked if I want to move the instrument. I'm going to say yes, but I don't believe it really matters either way that I shoot that last point or I actually move up to that point. So we're basically done with our traverse. And since this is an area feature, we can go back to the map screen. I can click my area, I can right click and calculate my square footage, which is my 10 acres. So let's run a closure report and then let's adjust our traverse. So to do that, click calculate under traverse, and let's take a look at the closure itself. Now we can just type in here number 1 and number 1 and click next, and it tells you how many traverse shots we made, how many side shots, the total perimeter length of the route, and information about that, and most importantly your misclosure results, which we have a closure of 1 in basically 24,000. Okay, so that is the report of our closure, but we have not adjusted it. To adjust it, on the home screen, go to calculate, traverse, and adjust. Basically, it looks the same way as your closure report. Very similar, except we can adjust elevations. We can adjust our side shots along with our traverse. We could choose if we want to apply curvature and refraction. And the nice thing here is if you want to run the adjustment and store that in another job, or the adjustments to the other job, you can do that and keep the integrity of the original job number 6. So this adjustment is going to be all tied into job number 6 adjusted 1, okay? So we'll click next, compass rule, adjust, and then we have our report. Now, instead of looking at here, let's export this report out as an adjustment results in job number 6 in the folder called results. Okay? Now, the nice thing about this icon here are apps. We go to files, and it takes us exactly where we want to be in our path for our jobs. Here's my adjustment saved. But let's go into job number 6, our results, and let's look at our adjustment results here. So it gives you information about the job name, again the number of traverse side shots, points. This information here I've not used because I did not measure my back sides. Here's your main, most important thing is your misclosure results. along with your measured coordinates and then the changed adjusted coordinate values and so forth. So basically everything you would need, Magnet Field does that for you. So that concludes this tutorial. Thank you, Sean in Kentucky, for the suggestion for this particular video. If you have suggestions, please give me a call, email, or text, and we can see if we can get that added. So thank you for watching.